What is up, guys? Welcome back to another incredible episode of the Motivation Everything Show. If you guys are tuning in live right now, I need you to do something for me. I need you to drop live in the comments below. Let me know who's tuning in live. If you happen to be catching the replay, drop replay below. I love to watch who tunes in and gets to see the episodes of the Motivation Everything Show, whether you're catching us in the Motivation Everything group, on my personal timeline over on IG or YouTube. We are multi-streaming to all of those destinations, reaching a broad audience. This week, I have a very special guest and near and dear friend of mine, Mr. Jeff Zacharski, with us. Can you guys help me welcome Jeff as I do an introduction for him? So Jeff Zacharski is an executive coach, love language expert, I know some of you love that, and co-host of the Gentle Men's Podcast. Jeff started his entrepreneurial journey in the tech startup world, building wireless networks across the U.S. at 30. He decided to follow another dream, leaving behind what he had built from Colorado to move to L.A., where he learned to produce music by working with the likes of John Legend. From there, he ventured to Nashville, his entrepreneurial skills leading him to build Jenga Productions, a recording studio located in the historic RCA building in Music Row, for those of you that know Nashville. In 2016, Jeff launched a nonprofit called Karaoke, whose inaugural event featured a meet and greet with country legend Reba McEntire. Today, Jeff focuses on his private coaching practice, running men's love language challenges, and leading couples retreats. Help me welcome Mr. Jeff Zacharski, guys.
Woo! Oh my God. Oh my gosh. Thanks, Cody. I am no longer going to go to another event that I don't hire you to open. It is absolutely a pleasure to be here.
Man, the pleasure is all ours. And guys, I asked Jeff before we did the show, what is a topic that you would love to dive deep on? And he told me the secrets of a startup mindset. So before we get into that, everybody wants to know, Jeff, what is your story?
Thanks for asking. I think, the intro kind of is like the super cliff notes, but that's like the thing that showed the iceberg on the surface that people get to know. What they don't get to know is what was it like through that journey? What was it like up to that point where, you would be able to peek out and get recognized for like an accomplishment or something like that. So man, my story is something that's ever evolving. And I will just say that every time I tell it, it comes out a little bit different. What I love about that is that sometimes with the energy of the people that I'm talking to, I get a new idea. Like there's something from that story that gets pulled out as a result of being in the conversation. So I don't actually know what's about to happen. And that's great because part of the conversation we're even going to talk about later is being willing to let go of everything that you know and really embrace what's true here in the moment. So whatever is going to be talked about here in this journey is going to never sound like this ever again. So without further ado, man, I would even rewind my story a little bit. I grew up in Michigan, which is great. We got that connection, grew up not too far from each other, had no idea who each other were all the way back then. But, I did the thing. I did the, go to high school, go to college, like get ready for a job kind of thing, follow the path that like everybody out there does. And it's great because like people have carved it for you. It's like the things your parents did. It's like, I learned from my parents. I'm just going to go do that. And then I'm going to get a job and then I'm going to have a family and then I'm going to do whatever that next thing in line is. And, I was getting this itch. So I went to Michigan State University and I was getting this itch at the end. I was trying to find this place that I fit. And that has been a story of my life. It's like finding that place that feels like me. And so even going into Michigan State, I'm like, I don't know what I want to do, but I'm going to go to school because that's what you're supposed to do. So I went to Michigan State, I got in, I declared like no preference or some like BS like that. Somehow they accepted me in. And, I got in and I quickly learned like, if I'm just like no preference, if I don't make a choice, then like graduating with no preference is like is not actually going to get me anywhere. So I learned pretty early on that I had to be willing to choose a path, even if I didn't quite know what the output of that path was going to be. And so, I quickly got in, and I don't even remember quite. I think the first thing was like, business is the thing for me. So I went in, got into business school, started doing that, and like got into macroeconomics. And I'm like, this is terrible. For me, why would anybody, hopefully no one's offended by like having a degree in macroeconomics, but it wasn't me. Like that was the thing that I quickly learned. And so I'm like, I can choose, I can switch. Where do I go next? And so from there, I went into engineering, and then I went to computer science. And then I came back to like mathematics, and I worked and did some physics. And, I finally ended up in this field called telecommunications. And what I loved about it is that it was broad. It allowed me to kind of dabble in a lot of things. And that's kind of been the story of my life. I'm never going to be known. I might, who knows, hasn't happened yet, but I'm never going to be known for like being the master of like only one thing. Like I am so much more than that one thing. And I learned that. So I would pick up what I could learn along the way, and I would add it back into my backpack. I would add it into my skill set. So I never knew when I was actually going to be able to use that. But as I went through this, I started filling the backpack. And I'm like, wait a minute, now I got all these tools. Like, what am I actually going to do with my life as I'm approaching, the standard 4-year commitment? Again, like the standard, right? The thing that everybody does. So I'm like, I got to get out. I got to find a way to get out. So I ended up committing and choosing to be to get a focus in web design. I'm like, that's the skill that I want to take out into the world. So I did it, chose it, nailed it, got a lot of stuff, like built my own web design company in the process. I'm like, the best way to do this is to get out there, is to stop saying like, I'm not ready, no one's going to hire me, and just to actually get out there and start producing websites, which is crazy when you're like sitting across from your first potential client and, asking them to pay you money for these services that you haven't actually sold before. And so like what I really learned is like, you always have to be ready, choose to be ready, even if you don't feel ready. So that was one of the real big life lessons that I got. And so from there, I graduated from Michigan State, and I got out, took a look at the job market, and I'm like, man, no, this is not, something's not right here. Like there's something more for me. I got to keep going. There's something else. There's something else I need to put in my backpack so that I can be like more adequately prepped. Like there was still a story in the back of my mind. Like I need more things so that I can somehow, I don't know, maybe be more valuable to the next employer or something like, because that was still my mindset. My mindset was like, I need to find someone else that's willing to pay me money to do something that I love. And in the meantime, I'm going to build all this stuff on the side, and it's just going to kind of keep me afloat. Like that was like this weird mindset. It was never shifting to a place that allowed me to actually realize at that moment in time that actually that's the thing that I wanted. That's the thing that was like, I was seeking, but I wasn't willing to own it yet. So at that point, I was like, I got to add something else. And so I went, there's been a few points in my life where things have just clicked. You ever had that moment, Cody, where like you are, like you're just in a situation, like something hits you, like something clicks in your chest, or like the energy shifts in your body, and you're like, I need to pay attention to whatever's happening right now.
Absolutely. It's like those moments of clarity. They're just so distinct and powerful, and you get it,
Totally. Yeah. And so, at that time I was like, I'm going to go check out grad schools. I think I want to be, this is crazy. I think I want to go work in an IT department, and I want to be this like technical guru kind of guy. So I looked up, and there were 2 universities. There was the University of Colorado Boulder, and then there was Syracuse, New York, like upstate New York, I think. And I remember driving into Colorado and driving over Highway 36. And if anybody hasn't been there, if you have been there, like you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. You peek over this last hill as you go into the valley of Boulder, Colorado. And it was just like, boom, done, game over. Like I just knew like that was the place that I had to be. Like I felt called. Like it was like, I don't know, divine intervention, spiritual, like clicking into place, intuition, all of those things.
Say that. I've kind of felt that recently.
Nice. Where at?
Here in San Diego, man. When I was coming
Nice.
out here over the past 6 months, there was this feeling and click of clarity, and I knew I needed to be here.
Nice. And look, you took action and you're there, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I think that's the big thing. It's like when you get that, you act on it, because it's like one of the strongest forces that you actually have inside of you. It's your own divinity. It's your own intuition. It's your own clarity. It's your own like highest self. And it's like, you got to trust it in those moments. Like when things are so clear, when the fog dissipates and you are like, that is the thing, like you got to drop it. You got to drop everything and you got to get into like not an if conversation, but a when conversation, and just be ready to do whatever it takes to get there. And like, that's who you are. I mean, that's clearly why we're even on this conversation, is that willingness to be like, wow, there it is. Click, time to go. Right.
So you had that feeling when you came over
that feeling
over Colorado. What followed?
Man. So I literally hadn't even gotten to the school yet to check out anything. I called Syracuse, New York, and I just said, I'm not coming. And they're like, did you like another school better? Like, I don't even know what I said. I probably said, yeah, in that moment, and I didn't know, but I just knew that like, that's what it was going to be. So I did. So I followed it. I kept clicking it. I kept taking that one next step that felt like it was leading, and I didn't have to have it all sorted out, but I was able to see far enough ahead that I knew that is the place that I needed to go to. So, I'll kind of fast forward through that a little bit. But it's, going into grad school, I quickly learned, like, I do not have the patience for sitting in a basement with no windows in a data center with a bunch of humming computers around me and a 9-to-5 job all day, every day. Like I quickly learned that out, but I had already committed, right? I was already in this program. And so I was like, oh crap, like, what do I got to do? And so I'm like, you know what? I got to throw it all out. Like not like throw out the program. I was like, I got to throw out everything that's traditional about what people think this program is built for. And I get to actually create it in a way that works for me. So I started talking with advisors, and I started, working with them and figuring out like, how do I make this work for me? Cause like, if I follow your path, it's not what I want. And what I really got to learn in that process is I was able to, I was able to get people on board. They're like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, well, here's what I see. Like, I want to take the foundation. I want to get what you guys built this program on, but I want to integrate business and I want to integrate music because, I did the thing that everybody does when they go to, enroll in grad school. They join their first band, and start writing songs and like stuff like that. So I'm like, building a band and, going full tech and all this stuff and bringing in business and but I'm getting everybody on board because I was willing to throw out what the traditional perspective was for how that was supposed to look for me should somebody else have written the story. So like the opportunity was for me to really learn how to rewrite my story and pull together all the pieces that I need for me to make it work in the way that I wanted to. And I was willing to do it. I was willing to have the hard conversations. Like there was a point in time where I almost left the university because I was like, I felt pigeonholed to not be able to get what I wanted. I'm like, well, if I'm not going to get what I want here, why would I stay? And then I was like, well, what if I could actually get what I want? And it just looked like it was a different thing. What if it was the non-traditional path? And that's really going to be a lot of the theme of the conversation that we're talking about today. And it's going to lead into, I think, some of the secrets that we're going to talk about here in just a little bit of how this mindset has really came to be. And I think you're going to even start to hear that in some of the way that I speak about it. But, so I did the school thing, graduated, I remember I getting to the end of it and I'm like, man, I gotta get myself a job. I got that same thing, right? That same thing, the deadline's coming up, the timer's coming up. Now is the time to act. Man, is that a BS? Like you act you act and you choose to be ready because you see an opportunity. You don't wait until something that has its own like sand time clock is going before you be ready to take action. You got one right there. Oh, Jesus. Oh my gosh. It's so perfect. Right. And that's the crazy thing. You will give yourself just as much time as you set the deadline. So if you set it out 3 years, you better believe you're going to give yourself 3 years. If you give yourself 3 days, the amount of action that you will need to take in that 3 days, the type of action that you'll have to take. And so that was me. It's like same kind of thing. I felt the pressure. I felt the end of it. And I was like, I have to take some action. What's the action? I got to get a job. I got my web design business. It's building this. I'm writing songs. I'm playing basement gigs down in Denver, just not knowing the rules, just showing up at venues and being like, how do you play here? Or I'd call people up and I would disguise my voice and I'd be like, hi, this is the manager of, and it was me, like, this is the manager of Corduroy, which was our band name back then. And we'd like to book the guys at your place. And so I'm just like, who do I need to show up as to get things going? Because if I called and said, hey, I'm with a band, they'd be like, just send us an email. We'll get to it at some point in time. So it's like, I needed to show up differently on my behalf to advocate for the thing that I wanted. And it required me, again, to throw out what I thought that I knew. And that's really been one of the great things that's been valuable for me. So, at the end of it, there was a guy that was speaking, and I was listening to this guy, and I'm like, man, this guy's a wizard. Like, I don't know what this guy does, but I want to go work for him. So I just got up at the end of class, like everyone's leaving and going to do their homework. And I just walked up to him and I said, hey, like, I want to work for you. I don't even know what you do, but I want to work for you. Like, I wanted to work for the mind. Like, I wanted to work for who he was. And then I quickly learned that, I had to earn my keep. So I went in, got the interview, got the job, and I'll fast forward some of this, but this process has always been like seeing the thing that I wanted and being willing to do what it took to get it. And in this case, like, I came in, he's like, all I can do is give you an internship. He's like, a paid internship. And I'm like, I'll take it. So I got in the door, got that step further as far as I thought that I could go, like far as I could see. And then all of a sudden the new path opened up and I started seeing the dynamics of the company. I kind of started to see like where I wanted to go. And over 5 years, I was able to not only be promoted from being an intern, but I walked up the ladder in 5 years and was able to be the chief operating officer for a period of time, in which we then sold off the company, transitioned all the employees, took the money and went and started to build something else. And so it's like, that's kind of been the thing. It's like, get as far as you can and then be willing to make new decisions based on what you have. And that's kind of been a philosophy along the way. So we took the money and we got the most important thing was me is like, I'm not the people that work for me. They are amazing. Like, they don't deserve to like lose their job. So that was part of the negotiation. So I'm sitting over the table. They said, ask for what you want. So I said, I want, like, this is how it needs to look over here. This is where I'm willing to go. And every single person that's over here that works for me gets a job. And the guy's like, deal. So like, is like what I was willing to settle for in that moment, like who I was, my integrity sitting around that table was really important to me. An alignment to who I am. And that's another part of this philosophy that we'll talk about in here in a little bit, is like being in integrity with your truth, and not from just what you think, but who you are as who I am as my highest self, my most like intuitive self, like the same self that clicked when I drove over the hill to go to into Boulder, Colorado. So I'll really fast forward now. So basically, I've gone through and done this several times. It's put me around the table. It's had me grow companies, sell companies, abandon ship of companies, build wireless networks all across the country, serving areas that were still on dial-up. And when I got to the end and I realized that there was actually something more for me, then I was ready to jump. When the next click came, I was ready to go, even though it didn't make sense. The next example of that is after I stepped away from.
You were in those moments real quick. How did you know you were ready to jump?
Ooh. I would love to say that I knew. I would love to tell you that every fiber in my body was telling me yes. But it wasn't it wasn't so much an intellectual sensation. It was like a soul level thing. So like my soul was saying yes, even though my ego and the fibers in my body was telling a totally different story.
So you felt it intuitively inside of
Yeah.
you. You had that gut feeling that you just
Totally.
knew that was what you needed to do.
Totally. And even deeper than the gut, because I think there's a couple layers of intuition. There's there's the knowing, it's like the clarity. And then there's like the alignment of like the gut, which is like sometimes the test of time is like, do I stay or do I go? Do I choose the red pill, the blue pill, like whatever the conversation is. But then there's a deeper knowing. It's like what happens when you go silent, when you let the world fall away, when you like trust your soul, when you trust your path, when you trust honestly a higher power in some cases, even than yourself. And like, that's the thing that you lean into. So it's like, you're not actually alone, but you are totally in this space. And that's been the thing for me. It's like, once I'm able to get past the ego, because the ego will screw you up 99% of the time. But when you can get down to who you really truly are at your core, and you can learn to build that trust mechanism, and that, man, paths open up, stuff gets easy, and like decisions, like it's not.
Would you say when you fight that almost that higher power feeling of knowing the direction you need to go, but you still resist it, that's when the bad stuff starts happening?
I don't know if I would label it as bad, but I would say like the opportunity has always been for me is to look at like, what am I resisting in that moment? Because it could be telling me something just really important to learn in that moment. It might not actually be a distraction. It might just be like a pause button where it's saying, I need you to learn something before you're willing to step into this. And so, but at the same, but on the other side, it could be total sabotage. Like the ego is great at tricking you into thinking that the ego's job is to stay safe. It was developed, it was great when you had to run from lions, tigers, and bears. Oh my, but at the end of the day, it's like the ego is amazing, and the opportunity is to create enough self-awareness so you can step out of the ego and choose what you want. And for me, that's being in alignment with who I am, what I stand for, what my values are, what my intuition tells me, and all of that stuff, outside of what my fear is like screaming at me about.
And how
like,
did you get clarity on who you are and that identity, those values? Because I think there's so many people that are still watching this show that struggle with that very beginning clarity of like, really, who am I? And I'm just curious, could you share with us how you discovered that?
Absolutely. I even have a practice that I'm going to offer to some of the people, because I think that people are like, oh my God, like, how do you figure this out, right? How do you figure out life's purpose? How do I figure out who I am? And I think for most of my life is I've been defined by what I do. And so like when people say who I am and they ask me like, who are you, Jeff? Like I am brotherhood. I am heart. I am wisdom. I am bravery. I am great. I am grace. I am vision. Like I am magic. Like these are the things that I am at my core. And it's, for me, it's like who we are is defined by who we are in our being, not by what we do. I think it's easy for me to say, oh, I'm a musician, or I'm a tech person, or I'm a coach, or I'm a podcast host. Like these are things that I'm doing, but all of that becomes a manifestation. It becomes manifested as a result of who I am being. So all of those things. So that journey for me has been a deep one. It's so much. It's working with coaches. It's working in spiritual realms. It's meditation. It's therapy. It's men's groups. It's couples retreats. It's putting myself in communities, groups, and support structures on purpose to call out my growth, to call out more of who I am, to call things to the surface so that I can see it.
I love what you talked about, putting yourself in environments to call out your growth.
Totally.
And I know for me and, me and Jeff, we're in a men's brotherhood, all business owner mastermind. And I feel that everybody needs to experience a level of an environment that calls out that personal growth in yourself and creates that comfort level of being around other like-minded people that also complement and level you up. I mean,
Totally.
Jeff, real quick, like, what are your thoughts on the value of being surrounded by like-minded people?
Oh man. I can tell you, well, we'll start off by telling you the value of what it's like to not be.
That's a good way to
Right?
go.
Like the person, it's because I have the experience. It's like I hung around most of my life with people that were fixed mindset, that they always had an excuse. They always had a reason. There was always something in their mind that was like inhibiting them from being willing to step in and go out beyond their comfort zone. I don't think of like where I grew up as a very comfort zone stretching place. It's like very proper. This is just how it is. This is just what we do kind of thing. And it's so limiting. So what I learned from that is it had me take on all of those limitations. So if you hang out with people that have a ton of limitations, you're going to, and that aren't willing to break them up, my experience has always been is I'm going to adopt that. It's like when you date somebody for the first time and after a year, you realize you pick up little quirks and habits and stuff like that. So whoever you surround yourself with, you're going to pick something up. So why not surround yourself with people that have a mindset that anything is possible, as opposed to, hey, that's just the way it is? Why not surround yourself with people that believe that like you can heal the world by showing up as a being of love, as opposed to hanging around with people that are always in complaint and fear and disappointment? Why not choose to put yourself in an environment where people are going for it and stretching their comfort zone, where you can rise up together and stretch your comfort zone at the same time? Be willing to stand, next to a brother or a sister or a person of arms as they're going for their dreams. Why not put yourself in that environment? Because it will only challenge you more. So it's like, I know you got a mastermind where, people from Motivation Everything are jumping in because they have these kind of dreams. Like, they're like, that's me, man. I'm somebody who's committed. I got dreams. I got vision. Like, yeah, I got some fear, but I'm ready. And not like I feel that I'm ready, but I'm choosing to be ready. And like, that's the best thing about a structure like that, is that structure is built to sustain an environment that calls out the best version of you, because everybody's playing at that level. When everybody's playing at that level of the best version of themselves, you can't hide. Like that's like the value that I see is like, be willing to insert yourself on purpose, even if you're scared. Like this just happened to me last week. So I took on, so I said this year, I wanted to take on doing some more like tantric energy, like sexual energy, like stuff that's like, I can talk about it and it's like kind of uncomfortable, but then like there's the experience of it that's so foreign. It's so out of my domain. And as soon as I started thinking about, man, I really want to add that in as a structure in my life. Like, man, what would my life would be like if I could cultivate sexual energy on demand? Not from like, I'm like this sexual being, this playboy kind of thing, but like this, like deep rooted, humble strength, like masculine sexual energy that just has me be so present in every single moment of my life. Like, what would that be like? And then I got in the conversation about this course that I was taking on, and I got put a choice. I got put like, hey, are you willing to jump into this group of 40 other men they're going on this same journey? I don't know any of these other people. I've been following the guy that's running it. And again, in that moment, I was like, that's the group. That's the course. That's the thing that's going to pull me out of my comfort zone. Like business stuff, got it. Relationship stuff, got it. Well-being stuff, got it. Tantric sex, don't got it. Like don't. And so for me, like it was me being willing to insert myself on purpose. My fear told me too expensive. You're not going to get the value. What else? You're going to look stupid. People are going to think you're weak. You're going to get through this entire thing and it's just not going to make a difference for you. Like that, those could have been all the places that I chose to make a decision from. And what would have happened is nothing.
Nothing would have changed.
Nothing would have changed. And like some people think that the pain has to be big enough. And I would squash that a little bit. I would say you just got to want it bad enough. Like you gotta see what the benefit is going to be for your life. And if you're like, man, that's a value add, do it. When it clicks, do it. Don't listen to the ego, listen to your higher self. My higher self was telling me do it. My ego was telling me to run or to put it off till June. Maybe I'll do it later. Maybe now is not the right time. And like, I'm constantly faced with that. And like how that even ties back into like the journey is that, you know, I went to LA. I went into a recording studio. I was sitting there and like, boom, like explosion. Like I wasn't on drugs, wasn't on alcohol, but I mean, the colors that I saw in that moment were like, oh my gosh, this is the thing for me. I was so sure that I went back to my boss and I told him, hey, I'm giving you a year's notice right now. I'm quitting in a year. He's like, why would you even tell me that? I'm like, accountability. That's the other thing. I need accountability to be able to make sure that I do what I say I'm going to do if I get scared. Another major important part of joining a group, coaching, therapy, mastermind, any of that kind of stuff. So again, I went back 363 days later, landed in LA.
Boom.
Just going, right? And it just kept fast forwarding. So like basically, and I know I won't really want to get to these secrets and I want to make sure we have enough time, but like, this is just how it went. I threw out what I know, you know, I had a vision for my life and like, I didn't know like what all the steps were, but I had this thing, I saw it, you know, like I'm a great businessman. I'm a great coach. I'm a great musician. I'm a great producer. Like a great songwriter. I can dock a boat like a boss. Like these are all things that I'm like really, really good. I actually put that on my resume pretty recently. My fiance is like,
dock a boat like a boss.
That I can dock a boat like a boss. Yeah, absolutely. You know, because you got to bring humor. You got to bring play. It's not just like this.
Your resume from everyone else's. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, totally. You know, and so it's like, but it's again, it comes back to who you are, right? Like, do you want to represent yourself as this like stuffy cookie cutter thing that actually strips away everything that's unique to who you are? Or do you actually want to express yourself? And that's where it really started to click for me. So I went into LA, said yes, went into this place, like answered a job, free internship at 32 years old. Like who does that? And I said, what is the worst thing they're going to do? Fire me from a free internship? Like maybe, you know? So I go to this place, Brentwood, California, this place called the House of Rock. And I pull up and it's this mansion. I don't know, $26 million. Something like that. And like, this is the place that I thought was the studio. And I'm like, I just go in, I'm like going up these marble staircase, like totally don't feel like I should belong there. Right. Totally have to like recalibrate with myself. And I'm like, okay, well, I had to tell myself like, I am here. Like I said yes to this. I'm supposed to be here. I trusted my intuition. And if I followed my intuition, then I'm where I'm supposed to be. So I got to keep going one step at a time. One step up the staircase. I didn't even know there was another staircase, but I knew I had to go up. I knew I had to start. Once I started, then I realized, oh, there's another one. And then I knew where to go. So I just kept going all the way up into this amazing recording studio, like $5 million recording studio, bells and whistles, boards like you wouldn't believe. And I'm the guy that learned to produce on like a mini keyboard and like a little mic, like a setup that's not too different than this setup. Right. So I'm walking in, I'm like, this is wow. Holy crap. The guy looks at me. He's like, think you can run this? And like, that was like one of those moments where I could have listened to my ego. My ego was like, no effing way. No effing way. Can you do that? Because again, I'm like, I'm going to figure it out. Again, I'm like, what's the worst that can happen in this moment? Oh, I'm going to get fired from a free internship at 32 and I'm going to have a hell of a story. That's as bad as it gets. Cool. I'm in. So I'm like screaming no on the inside and saying yes on the outside. And I did. Figured it out. Went there every day, worked there 16 hours a day, asked for support. That's the thing, right? I could have sat there. I could have been silent and I could have not asked anybody that knew more than me. By the way, I was asking a bunch of 19-year-olds how to do some stuff. So you want to talk about getting humble real fast to be able to ask for that kind of support from a person that's like over a decade younger than you. Like I had to be willing. Like I had to be willing to say, hey, like teach me that, show me that, or like sit with me while I'm learning to like fumble through this and sort this out. So fast forward, went through that. Amazing opportunities. We got to record like over 300 bands in 6 months. Got to work with John Legend, Mike Posner, Talib Kweli, like Saint Lucia, Imagine Dragons, like all of these people, like recording all of this live stuff. And it was so cool. But the really cool part about the John Legend stuff, and that's how it really ties into this. And we're going to dive right into those keys because I didn't realize I could talk about myself for this long, but I'm weaving all of it into the conversation. So I think it's going to be pretty fast as to how we actually like boom, 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 dive into that. But, you know, I'm sitting there. Oh, and Billy Idol. Forgot about that. Got to have a cocktail with Billy Idol. So that was pretty dope. Cool. That was pretty dope. That guy is scary in person. Let me tell you, his presence, his energy, you just know he's standing behind you and you don't know what he is or who he is or but it's pretty crazy. So sitting there working with John Legend, workshopping a song, singing the song, he's singing this melody, singing a couple lyrics, and like, this guy's great. Like he's just kind of starting to break into the scene and all that kind of stuff. Fast forward 2 years later, sitting there watching Grey's Anatomy and this song comes on. And I'm like, I know this song. Where is this song coming from? I don't really get this. And everybody that I'm watching it with, yes, I watch Grey's Anatomy. No shame. Everybody that we're watching it with is like, you can't know this song. It's not out yet. I'm like, no, I know this song. Like, you can't. And now all of a sudden I realized it clicked back. I fast forwarded or I rewound back to that time where he was putting the final touches on his song, All of Me. It's like huge hit, right? And like, I knew the song. Like I was there with the old lyrics. Like I was in this because I said yes. I was really willing to trust my intuition and I was ready to dive in that moment. And I just kept doing that. And that's just really how it's been. So we fast forward now to where we are today. I've been following that. I learned in that moment that what was missing in my life was me to learn how to express a version of myself that is indicative of who I am at my core. Something that displays all of me, all of who I am. And it was like, I keep going back to that song because it hit me so hard. It hit me so deep in my chest. It's like, man, like I'm going to give you all of me. That's the lyric, right? And he's singing it to his wife in that moment. But like, what if you said that to yourself? Like giving all of yourself to yourself. Like what's possible from that place? So I've taken that with me. And since then I've gone on. I'm like, I want to help other people do that. I want to help other people learn to be more of who they are. I want to help them strip away all the pieces of their ego that are not in service to them. I want to help them remove the limitations, the resistance, so that they can show up as a representative of their own light, who they naturally are, who they are without resistance, who they are with intuition. And I want to help them create what their life looks like from that place. So I've been doing that now for about 5 years. I've gone through the training, got the certifications, blah, blah, blah. That's not the important part. The important part is working with people at such a deep level that they're able to build their companies in, what would have taken 5 years, 2 years. They, in a pandemic, they triple their company, triple their workforce, have a baby at the same time because they have the support that's been there for them. So I work a lot with like C-level executives, helping them really execute on their visions. I work with entrepreneurs, helping them bring and like shine more light on who they really are and helping them bring that to life. And then I work with men. I work with men around vulnerability because I think men, like we're more apt to have blocks around our own vulnerability and how deep that we're willing to go. Like how deep we're willing to go to get to that place that's naturally who we are, which is such this weird paradox to be in. So now it's, and everything that I do now is a manifestation of that. It's a manifestation of who I am. So the fact that I'm on this video with you is a manifestation of who I'm showing up as, the way my business looks, the way my relationship looks, the way that my family looks, the way that the things that are around the corner, like the next steps of like getting a house and like kids, like it's all tied together. It's all a manifestation of who I am and who I've been willing to be in the process.
Man, absolutely love that. Some powerful stuff in there. One thing I wanted to point out is finding the place that you fit. You said earlier that, and that stood out to me. And then instead of fitting into the box that society told you needed to fit into, you went and created something that worked for you. And as you told your story, there's this common theme where you're constantly creating what works for you in your higher self.
Yep.
And I think that's powerful. And I just wanted to point that out, guys. And he talked about going down a non-traditional path and creating what worked for him. And I think when I talk to so many people working with the clients I work with, and I'm sure you see the same thing, Jeff, we see like just between the lines. And we think that we have to fit in these certain specific lanes and these cookie cutter jobs and lives. And that's the farthest thing from true. Who says that we have to fit into these boxes? Society, just because most people do it. So I wanted to just point out, guys, that there is no right or wrong way. There's just the way that works for you. So that was powerful. Now, as we segue, I want to bring it full circle here.
Do it.
So the theme of this show is the secrets of a startup mindset. In today's day and age, I think you could agree with me, Jeff. We're in a revisiting entrepreneurial time where it is booming. If you go back in time, entrepreneurship used to be it. Like there used to be entrepreneurs all over the world that had their own little things and crafts and trades and skills that they did. Many family-owned businesses and things like that. Then we hit the Industrial Revolution. Factory jobs were created, mass production. We moved away from the entrepreneurial, more into the employee. College and the education systems were built up. We began training people to go to school, get good grades, go work, get a good job, and retire. Then we moved into the dot-com era. The internet was born. Society began to evolve. And now we're stepping into this new age where COVID really threw steroids on it and sped it up even faster, where now we're all home. We have screens like this. We have access to the internet. We can connect with anyone in the world. We have everything at our fingertips, and you're beginning to see the dawn of the entrepreneur begin again. So there's so many people in that startup phase or wanting to start and no clue how. Give us the secrets of a startup mindset. You've been through this many times.
Yeah. No. Oh man, what a segue. That's perfect. Yeah. So as everybody's listening here, you're going to see that what I'm about to share with you, you're going to hear the common theme. I'm not actually about to tell you anything new that you haven't heard from what I've already shared, but I am going to highlight the very specific components that helped me create and get where I am. Because I think that, some of these times we sit there and we figure out like, I need to do it. I need to figure it all out. I need to mine it. I need to mine it for 40 years. And then maybe I'll finally figure it out. Man, if I would have known about like mentorship, coaching at the age of 22, you're a young buck. I won't tell people how old I am, but had I gotten access,
you said that.
Yeah. But had I would have gotten access to what I've surrounded myself with today, life would have been different. And I don't mean like different, like bad, or who knows what it would have looked like, but I would have started earlier. And I think they say like there's 2 times to plant a tree. One is 20 years ago. And the second one is like literally right now, like grabbing a shovel, going out in the backyard, planting a tree. Like there's never a better time to actually start this journey. And the important thing is to be ready to be ready, choose to be ready, choose to be willing to step into this new territory. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you a few of the secrets. See, we got about 15 minutes of that. And hopefully we can get into some practices as well, so that you're not just like getting talked at and getting this information. I want everybody listening here to be able to take what I'm sharing, and I want you to be able to put it into practice. Insight without action is just predictable crap. It's like a good idea that doesn't change the world. Like if you want to make a change, like you have to be willing to say that it's time. Like, and you have to be willing to say, like, I'm the person in this moment who is going to take this on and is going to make the change. So here's a few things that have really worked for me. Number one, forget everything you know. Seems a little counterintuitive, but we are bottlenecked if we stay inside what we know. I don't know what the exact study is, so don't quote me on this, but I think it's like if we were to say our brain capacity and things that we could gain access to knowledge-wise was 100%, 10% of your brain that you're using is stuff you know. Another 10% is stuff that you know that you don't know. The other 80% is stuff that you don't know that you don't know. So if you're throwing out everything you know and you start playing in this idea of like, I don't actually know, you can get curious. You can create new possibilities. You can be in conversations with coaches and you can say, hey, tell me what I'm not seeing. You can have people create different perspectives that shift you out of what you think you already know. If you operate only from within what you already know, you're going to get the same as everything. So part of the work that I do, that Cody does, that other coaches, other groups do is our jobs is to disrupt that and then to invite you into a different conversation. One that is based on curiosity, one that is based on play and magic. And like some of the stuff that we're going to get to towards the end is like part of it's based on intuition. So 10% of stuff you know, 10% you know you don't know, and this unknown is like a full 80%. So there's so much room to explore in this area. And I want you to hear that that's the scary thing. That's where the comfort zone like doesn't exist. That's where the ego says, nope, don't go there. I want you to stay in this 20%. Well, if you're operating your life only from what you know, and what you don't know, you're at 20% capacity. Why would you not step into an environment that's going to challenge you to create 30, 40, 50? I don't know if you can get to 100, but I know that there's the opportunity to do that. So forget everything you know. And here's a practice. Here's a practice I want everyone to take down. Coming up on a decision, coming up when you think there's something in front of you, you got to make a choice. You got to move in a direction. I want you to make a list of all the rules, all the things that you think are true. And I want you to write down all of this. And I want you to go ask yourself, if all of these rules are complete crap, what else might I do? Like, what else might be possible? Like, what actions would I take if all of these rules are crap? Because what you're going to start to notice is you're going to start to dismantle your own beliefs and your own limitations as to what you think could be possible. So that leads us into the next key. The next one is making choices that are aligned with your vision. A lot of this time we get stuck in this analysis paralysis. We're like, what's the next step? What's the next right step? Where do I go? How do I know this is going to work? And we're myopic. We got blindfolds on, we got this little tiny light that we're like looking through, and we ignore the rest of the world. So once you go through first step one and forget everything you know, start taking a look at what your vision is. Spoiler alert, if you don't have a vision, create a vision. It's one of the most important things. It's the thing that you can anchor, because if you make choices, the next thing is make choices that are in alignment with your vision. If you are connected to your vision, if you can breathe it, if you can smell it, if you can taste it, you will know if you're making choices in the direction of it or away from it. So whenever you're faced with a hard choice, you may go, is this going to move me in the direction of my vision? Am I willing to step into this to try? Am I willing to say yes to this thing to possibly open up another step to get me towards my vision? If the answer is yes, then you do it. If the answer is no, then you look for what's next. You look for the next thing to take on that's involved with your vision. So number one, forget everything you know. Number two, make choices in alignment with your vision. And one of the things that I love to do from a practice standpoint, it's called YKWWBC. YKWWBC, which stands for you know what would be cool is. So you basically say that at the beginning and you'd be like, you know what would be cool is, so say your vision was building a major company, like, and you wanted to serve like all the people. You know what'd be cool is, man, if I could impact 100 people this year. You might be like, okay, cool. You know what'd be cool beyond that is, oh, what if that could turn into running retreats? Okay, well now if I run retreats, you know what'd be cool is if where I wanted to run retreats is I invested in a retreat center. And like, so when I went down there, I had a place that was like mine. It was, you know, it'd be cool is, man, when I walked in there, everybody knew who I was and they greeted me and like they had everything set up just the way that I like it. You know, it'd be cool is, well, if that's all set up, then like I could be so stressed. Like you could just keep adding all of these things in. So it's like you play, it's an old improv skill. It's like the idea of yes and. It's the idea of opening up possibilities. So if you're getting stuck in your vision, play the game of, you know, it would be cool and just keep going and don't stop. As ridiculous as it absolutely sounds, there's no ridiculous in vision, because if it's coming out of you, it's part of who you are, which leads me to the next thing. Trust your higher self. So number one, forget everything you know. Number two, make choices in alignment with your vision. And three, trust your higher self. A lot of this conversation we've talked about who you are at your highest and best, who you are as your light, whatever the word is, who you are as your most unique, authentic self. Trust that version of you. Listen to your ego. Thank you. Have a nice day. Make choices from your higher self that are in alignment with your vision, where you're willing to step into the world of what you don't know, you don't know. So the equation actually goes forward and it works backwards. So you get the opportunity to go back and forth wherever you're stuck, you know, because if you're trusting your higher self, something's telling you that you're not really sure. You go, okay, well, that's it. I'm going to forget everything I know. I'm going to go back to the beginning. And all of a sudden you have a new slate. You have a new place of possibility. Great. Now that I've cleaned all the gunk out, now am I ready to make choices in alignment with my vision? What just opened up because I just gave myself to throw all the rules out? So this thing is like a hodgepodge of like endless amounts of possibility if you're curious enough and you're willing enough to play it. So the last exercise that I want to give you, because I think Cody, one of the things you said was, who am I? Like, how do people get to figure out like who they are? And one of the things that I love to do is ask somebody. Like, be willing to call somebody up and say, hey, what qualities do you love about me? Or like maybe a question about, who am I to you? Like, what's important about me being in your life? What do you love about me? Don't do it through text. Don't do it through email. Like, I know, a little old school, right? This is like late 90s action right here, but be willing to pick up the phone.
Rotary phone.
Be willing to rotary phone. Yeah, spin it around. If you got one, God bless. But if you don't, like, be willing to make the phone call. Be willing to go and be willing to listen, because somebody is going to tell you who you are. And write it down. Empower it. Be willing to have somebody reflect your greatness to you. Be willing to have somebody reflect to you why you're important to be in their life. That will tell you who you are. So that's how I'll close it out. It's forget everything you know. Make choices that are in alignment with your vision. Trust in your higher self. Be willing to do the work to discover what's needed in each of the different secrets that I've given you today. As you guys have heard, like, I've used them so many times throughout my time and my journey, and I'm not going to stop, because the startup mindset is agile. It's not risk averse. It's commitment oriented. It's outside of the comfort zone. It's building something amazing because you want to. It's not going back into the 9 to 5 and working for someone else. Maybe that's the thing you got to do. So then you can create the thing over here. You get to do whatever is needed inside of your vision. You get to take those things inside your vision. So that's kind of where I want to close it out, Cody, because I know we only got a few minutes left.
I know it's a great show. Silent over here, just listening. So I hope everybody else watching this and that watches the replay is getting just as much value as I am. That was powerful, man. I just wanted to keep letting you go, if I'm being honest. One of the cool things too, guys, is as you can see, Jeff brings a ton of value, and he recently just launched his Gentlemen podcast. So one of the great ways that we can show support to Jeff is by going to Spotify or iTunes, subscribing to the Gentlemen podcast, giving some listens to the episodes, reach out to him, give him some feedback. Let's give him 5 stars. Let's write a review on it. That'll help him out in a way that we can give him value. Outside of that, where can people connect with you, Jeff?
So I think a couple things. The 2 main places. So one, yes, Gentlemen, the podcast. As with any great idea coming into the sphere, you're going to it's like you got, Home Depot and Lowe's. When you got an idea comes out, you're going to see competitors. So we'll put a link in here, but it's Gentlemen, the podcast, and it's an orange cover. And right now it's available on iTunes, soon to be Spotify. You can find me there. You can find us on Instagram, Gentlemen, the podcast. If you want to reach out to me directly, just send me a DM on Instagram. That's the best way. And it's just my first name and last name. So Jeff Zacharski, no spaces, no hyphens, any of that kind of stuff. That's where it's kind of like, it's more of my life, but it's the bigger brand of who I am. It's like I said, it's who I am. It's a representative of who I am. So you're going to see music, coaching, love language challenges, live stuff, trips. It's all a reflection of who I am. So that's the best way to get in touch with me.
Love it. And I have a final kind of closing question for you.
Do it.
And I'd like to ask, what is the best piece of advice that you have ever received or given?
Ooh. Let's see. Given is choose to be ready. Choose to be ready outside of how you feel. Choose to be ready. Choose to take a step. Because once you take one, you get to see where you get to go next. So that's the thing I would say given to me or received, I would say is remember that you are love.
Drops my.
I think it's more of a reflection than it is advice, but it's like, that's the thing. Remember, every single one of us, we are creatures of love and being.
I love that. Absolutely, brother. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for coming on and everything.
Yeah.
For helping us of a startup mindset for sure story. Guys, we're going, we're subscribing to the podcast, we're reading Jeff, we're plugging in with him. Brings a ton of you. And I would just like to thank you from my heart for everybody that's been on this with motivation, everything, watching all the episodes of the show. We have amazing things for the future. We are also going to convert over to iTunes and Spotify and all that. Stay tuned. I imagine it'll happen sometime in the next 30 days or so. And look forward to next week. We'll be back with another incredible guest. Guys, everybody, incredible night.